Your job was to clean and cook until the boss's son returned from trip and encountered her in an unexpected situation in the bathroom, and a true passion began there. Subscribe to our channel to ensure you don't miss more amazing stories like this one, and don't forget to like to continue following us. The smell of fresh coffee filled the small apartment where Haley lived with her mother and younger brother. The morning sun streamed through the cracks in the window, illuminating the simple yet tidy living room. Life had never been easy for her, but hope was always present. Since she was little, Haley knew she would have to fight to give her family a better life, and when the opportunity arose to work as a maid in the imposing mansion of the Vasconcelos family, she seized the chance. Without hesitation, that day, as she folded her few clothes into a battered suitcase, her mother gently held her hands. "You will succeed, my daughter. I know your heart is good, and that will take you far." Haley smiled, trying to hide her insecurity. She didn't know what awaited her in that luxurious house, but she promised herself she would do everything with dedication. Her mother and brother needed her, and she couldn't fail. The Vasconcelos mansion was a world apart, an imposing house with large, white columns, well-kept gardens, and a luxury that Haley had never seen up close. As soon as she crossed the gates, she felt a chill in her stomach. Everything seemed grand, distant from her reality. She was welcomed by Olivia, the housekeeper, a woman of rigid posture and assessing gaze, who gradually showed a certain affection for Haley. "Here, work and discretion are fundamental. Do your job right, avoid getting into trouble, and everything will go well," said the housekeeper, observing the young woman closely. Haley nodded, determined. Her job was to cook, clean, and keep everything immaculate. During the first few days, everything went as expected. The work was heavy, but she liked feeling useful. The mansion, although stunning, hid a strange silence, as if it awaited something to break its monotony. It was then she heard the employees murmuring about the imminent arrival of Benjamin, the heir of the family. "He spent a year abroad. They say he returned different," commented one of the employees while polishing a silver candlestick. Haley didn't pay much attention. For her, the rich had their own dramas, and she was not part of that world. But fate was about to put her in Benjamin's path in an unexpected way. Benjamin entered the mansion late at night, tired from the long journey. The flight had been exhausting, and his mind was still filled with the challenges he had faced abroad. The betrayal of a former partner and the obstacles to maintain his sustainable energy project had left marks. Now, all he wanted was a hot shower and a moment of peace. He climbed the stairs without drawing attention from the employees, who were already settled in. The silent hallway guided him to his old room. As he passed by the bathroom door, he pushed. It opened without thinking, sure it would be empty, but it wasn't. The scene before him made him stop instantly. Haley was there, her skin still damp from the first drops of water falling from the shower. Her eyes widened in shock upon seeing him, the fright paralyzing her movements. Benjamin, only in his underwear, blinked a few times, trying to process the situation. The yellowish light from the bathroom illuminated her face, highlighting her delicate features. He had never seen anyone so beautiful in such an unexpected way. Haley reacted first. "Who are you?" she exclaimed, pulling the towel around herself, her face burning with embarrassment. He raised his hands, laughing involuntarily. "I'm the one asking. This is my bathroom." Her gaze narrowed. "Your bathroom?" Then it clicked. "You are the boss's son." The silence lingered. Neither of them knew exactly how to act. Benjamin noticed the blush on her face and the hurry to step back. She was different. She didn't seem like one of those accustomed to mansion life. He smiled wryly, still in shock. "I guess we started off on the wrong foot, or rather in a rather unusual way." Haley huffed, trying to maintain her composure. "Please, give me a minute to get out of here." "Of course." He left almost tripping, closing the door behind him. On the other side, leaning against the wall, Benjamin let out a deep sigh. He hadn't expected his arrival to be marked by such an intense encounter. And for the first time in a long time, he felt something different inside him. The first. Ties. In the following days, their glances became frequent. Hayley tried to act as if nothing had happened, but every time she crossed paths with Benjamin in the hallways, her heart raced. He, in turn, became more and more interested in her. He watched her in the kitchen, focused on her work, or in the garden, admiring the flowers during her rare moments of rest. Curiosity soon turned into admiration. Hayley wasn't just beautiful. She was intelligent, kind, and dedicated. When she showed interest in the renewable energy project he wanted to implement in underprivileged communities, Benjamin realized there was much more to her than he had imagined. One late afternoon, he found her in the mansion library, flipping through a book on solar energy. "Are you enjoying the reading?" he asked, leaning against the shelf. She jumped, but smiled. "I'm trying to better understand what you do. It seems like an important project." He sat down next to her. "It's much more than a business to me. I want to do something that really changes lives." Her eyes sparkled. "That's beautiful. It means you don't just want to continue your family's empire, but create something of your own." That comment lingered in Benjamin's mind. How could a simple maid see something that so many others overlooked? Day by day, their connection grew. In the mansion's hallways, during furtive conversations over coffee, in glances that spoke more than any words. But not everything would be so simple. Hayley had no idea of the challenges that lay ahead, and Benjamin, he still didn't know that by falling in love with her, he was risking much more than his reputation. The mansion looked the same as always, luxurious, silent, and filled with invisible rules. But for Hayley, something had changed. Since the unexpected encounter in the bathroom, the days began to unfold differently. The corridors seemed narrower when Benjamin was around. The rooms were brighter when he smiled. And, above all, the moments of silence were filled with a new tension that she couldn't name. In the kitchen, while preparing coffee for the housekeeper, she felt a gaze upon her. She didn't need to turn to know who it was. "Are you always so busy?" Benjamin's voice echoed behind her. She took a deep breath before turning, pretending to be unconcerned. "I work here, remember?" He laughed, leaning against the marble countertop. "I work too, but now and then it's good to take a break." Hayley narrowed her eyes. "And what exactly do you do, besides wandering around and scaring maids in the bathroom?" He raised his eyebrows, amused. "Oh, so you still think about that? I thought you had gotten over it." She blushed right away, looking away at the cup in her hands. Benjamin noticed the flush in her cheeks and felt an unexpected warmth. There was something fascinating about the way she reacted to him. No flattery, no nonsense, just pure and genuine. "You don't have to look at me like that," she muttered. "Like how?" She finally raised her eyes, meeting his. For a moment, everything around seemed to disappear, as if you were deciphering me. He smiled to the side. "Maybe I am." Hayley felt a shiver run down her skin. What was happening to her? Never in her life had she felt something so intense. But she couldn't allow herself to dream. He was her boss, and she was just a maid. That day unfolded unusually. At Benjamin's insistence, Hayley agreed to help him organize some documents in the office. However, after an hour of work, he suggested a break. "Let's take a walk," he said, grabbing a light jacket. "A walk in the garden. It's beautiful outside, and I want to show you something." Hayley hesitated, but curiosity won out. The mansion's gardens were a spectacle on their own. Roses, lavenders, and lilies spread across perfectly designed beds, and the breeze carried the perfume of the flowers, They walked side by side, unhurried. "I had never been here," she commented, admiring the scenery. "Really?" He observed her closely. "So I'm the first to bring you?" She smiled. Probably. The silence that followed was comfortable. For the first time, Haley didn't feel just like an employee there. She felt seen. When they reached the orchid house, Benjamin carefully opened the glass door. "This place was my mother's favorite," he said, looking around nostalgically. Haley felt her heart tighten. For the first time, she saw Benjamin without the mask of charm and confidence. There, surrounded by the orchids, he seemed just a man trying to find his place in the world. "And why did you stop coming here?" He sighed. "Because for a time, I was too busy chasing things that, in the end, maybe weren't that important." Haley fell silent. Sometimes life took us away from what truly mattered, and she knew well how that felt. Suddenly Benjamin picked a small flower and gently placed it behind her ear. "Now that's perfect." Haley felt her heart race. The way he looked at her, as if she was special, as if for a moment there were no barriers between them. But she knew there were, and soon the world would remind them of that. The closeness between Benjamin and Haley did not go unnoticed by the other house employees. "Did you see how he looks at her?" one of the cooks whispered. "And how she returns the gaze? This won't end well." The gossip spread quickly. Olivia, always observant, called Haley for a talk. "You are getting too close to Benjamin." Haley felt a chill run down her spine. "I haven't done anything wrong." "I know, but in this house, appearances matter. And you know as well as I do that certain worlds do not mix." Those words echoed in her mind. That night, as she settled into the small room designated for employees, Haley stared at the ceiling, feeling confused. She wanted to push away the feelings that were beginning to arise, but how could she avoid something that seemed to grow on its own? The next day, when she encountered Benjamin once again, she knew she had to set a limit. But then he smiled at her, and in that instant, all boundaries disappeared. The rain fell lightly on the mansion as Haley left the kitchen to get something in the main hall. The house was silent, almost mystical. That was when she felt someone pull her hand. She turned, surprised. Benjamin had pulled her into a discreet corner. "What's wrong?" she whispered, her heart racing. He didn't say anything. He just held her hand between his, feeling her warm skin against his. "Why are you avoiding me?" She tried to look away, but he gently held her chin. "Haley," the way he said her name made her shudder. "You know this isn't right," she murmured. "And who decides what's right or wrong?" She wanted to argue. She wanted to say that the world would decide for them. But then Benjamin did something that changed everything. He kissed her. It was a soft but intense kiss, a kiss that carried everything they were trying to ignore. And in that moment, Haley knew there was no turning back. Fate had placed them on the same path, and from then on, everything would change. The taste of Benjamin was still on Haley's lips when she pulled away, breathless, her heart hammered in her chest, and her mind screamed that this was a mistake. This can't happen," she whispered out of breath. Benjamin still held her face in his hands, his eyes fixed on hers. "Why not?" She blinked, surprised. "You know why," she murmured, fighting the urge to kiss him again. But Benjamin didn't seem willing to accept that invisible barrier. "You feel the same as I do, Haley. You can't deny it." She closed her eyes for a moment. She felt it. She felt every gaze, every accidental touch, every spark that ignited between them. But fear spoke louder. Haley stepped back, taking a deep breath. This isn't right. I'm an employee here, Benjamin. This would never work out." He ran his hand through his hair, frustrated. "Do you really believe that? That the place where you work defines who you are?" She lowered her gaze. "It's not that simple." He sighed, realizing the wall she was trying to build. It's fine, but know one thing, Haley. I will not give up. And with that he stepped away, leaving her with a racing heart and a storm of emotions inside. The following days were a silent dance of contained desires. Haley avoided Benjamin whenever she could, but whenever their paths crossed, their gazes said more than any words. In the library, he caught her observing him discreetly. In the garden, she felt his presence even before seeing him. And in the kitchen, while preparing dinner, she knew he was there, leaning against the doorframe, just watching her. The problem was that the mansion was starting to take notice. The servants whispered, Olivia shot suspicious glances, and Haley felt the weight of every rumor. But the worst was yet to come. One night, after finishing her tasks, Haley made her way to her room at the back of the mansion. The house was silent, everyone already settled down, or almost everyone. As she turned one of the corridors, she felt a hand grab her wrist and pull her into a dark corner. She widened her eyes, about to scream, until she sensed the familiar scent. Benjamin? He pressed her gently against the wall, his face close to hers. I need to talk to you. She swallowed hard. Here? Now? If someone sees us, let them see I don't care. She closed her eyes, feeling the warm touch of his fingers on her skin. I care, she whispered. Benjamin held her chin, forcing her to meet his gaze. Why? Because of what others will say? She didn't respond. She didn't need to. He knew the answer. He sighed, weary of this invisible struggle between what they felt and what was allowed. Tell me to go away, Haley. If you really don't want this, tell me now. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. And in that moment, Benjamin knew she was as lost as he was. Time seemed to stop. The silent corridors, the shadows, dancing on the walls, the heat emanating from his body. Haley felt Benjamin's heavy breath too close, the woody scent he always carried. I can't, she whispered, but her voice sounded weak. He brought his lips closer to hers, so slowly that it seemed to give her time to flee, to stop this, but she didn't move. And when he finally kissed her, everything around them disappeared. It was an intense kiss, filled with urgency and repressed desire. His fingers slid over her face, holding her gently as if afraid she would vanish. Haley surrendered. There were no rules, fears, or barriers in that moment, just the taste of Benjamin, the warmth of his touch, and the certainty that, in that moment, there was nothing more right. When the kiss ended, they stayed there, breathless, their faces still close. Now tell me this was a mistake, he challenged, his gaze burning on her. Haley couldn't, because it wasn't a mistake. It was inevitable. The next day, everything felt different. Haley tried to maintain normalcy, but she knew she was no longer the same. Every exchanged glance with Benjamin was loaded with memories of the previous night. But there was something more. Something she didn't realize until she entered the kitchen and felt the gazes on her. The servants were whispering. The butler looked away, and then she heard the whisper coming from the back of the room. She spent the night with him. The shock hit her like a punch. She widened her eyes, feeling her face burn. How did they know? Her fingers gripped the edge of the counter. Her heart raced so fast that she could barely breathe. It was then that Olivia entered the kitchen, serious. Haley, I need to talk to you, now. The chill down her spine came instantly. She knew this wasn't a request. It was a sentence, and in that moment she understood the weight of everything that was at stake. Olivia took her to her office, closing the door firmly. I won't beat around the bush, Haley. The rumors about you and Benjamin are all over the house. Haley lowered her head. That's not true, she tried to say, but her voice faltered. The housekeeper crossed her arms. "Look me in the eyes and say that again." She couldn't. The silence that followed was heavy. Finally, Olivia sighed, tired. "You know this isn't going to end well, don't you?" Haley felt a knot in her throat. "I didn't mean for this to happen." "But it happened, and now, Haley, you need to choose." The young woman's eyes filled with tears. "Choose. Yes, either you distance yourself from Benjamin now, or you prepare to face the consequences." Haley felt the ground give way beneath her feet. The consequences. She knew it wasn't just about her job. It was about what they would do to her. To them. And for the first time, she felt real fear. Because she knew this was far from just a forbidden romance. This was a war, and they were about to pay the price. Haley left Olivia's office feeling dizzy, as if the ground were unsteady beneath her feet. The governess's words echoed in her mind. Either you distance yourself from Benjamin now, or prepare to face the consequences. She walked down the hallway, as if in a trance, ignoring the curious glances of the other employees. She needed to think. She needed to act before it was too late. But the truth was that it was already too late. The feeling between her and Benjamin had grown like an untamed flame, and now the sparks were about to ignite everything around them. As she turned one of the hallways of the mansion, she felt a presence and stopped abruptly. It was Benjamin. He was there, leaning against the marble wall, arms crossed and a tense expression on his face. "What happened?" he asked, noticing her troubled look. Haley took a deep breath, feeling her heart pound against her chest. "They know. Benjamin, the whole house knows." He ran a hand over his face, frustrated. "I figured this would happen. The governess called me. She said I need to choose." He raised his gaze, attentive. "Choose?" She closed her eyes for a moment before facing him. "Between you and my life here." The silence that followed was heavy. Benjamin looked at her with a mixture of surprise and repressed anger. "And what do you want to do?" The question hit her hard. What did she want? Did she want to continue in this job that provided her sustenance, or did she want to follow her heart and risk it all? But before she could answer, hurried steps echoed down the hallway. Olivia appeared serious, her eyes fixed on Benjamin. "Your father has arrived." Haley felt a shiver. The boss was back, and now everything was about to change. The mansion's clock struck exactly 7 in the evening when Benjamin and Haley were summoned to the main room. Mr. Vasconcelos was sitting in a dark leather armchair, a glass of whiskey in hand, and his sharp gaze analyzing the two. "So," he began, swirling the amber liquid in the glass, "it seems my son has been getting involved with the maid." Those words came out like poison, laden with contempt. Haley felt a knot in her throat, but kept her head held high. Benjamin, for his part, did not hesitate. "Yes, and I won't deny it." His father raised an eyebrow, surprised by the audacity. "Couldn't you have chosen someone more suitable?" Fury rose in Benjamin's face. "Be careful with your words, father." The man let out a dry laugh and took a sip of his whiskey. "Careful, I should say that to you. If you think you can just play romance with a household employee without it having consequences, you are mistaken." He then looked directly at Haley, and the intensity of that gaze made her freeze. "You know you have no future with my son, right?" She swallowed hard but refused to lower her eyes. "I'm not here out of interest." Mr. Vasconcelos leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "No? Then tell me, what do you want?" That question seemed simple, but it carried a huge weight. She looked at Benjamin. He was watching her with a proud expression and a spark of concern. And then, for the first time, Haley realized she didn't just want to be with Benjamin. She wanted to be free to love without fear. She wanted to be respected. She wanted a future where her background wasn't an obstacle, but part of her story. She took a deep breath, and with all the courage she found within herself answered, "I just want the right to love without being treated as if I were less than anyone else." The silence in the room was deafening. Mr. Vasconcelos narrowed his eyes, evaluating her for a long moment. Then he let out a low, cold laugh. "That's not going to happen." Those words sliced through the air like a blade. "You will be fired. Today." Haley felt the ground disappear. "What?" Benjamin stepped forward, his eyes flashing with anger. "I will not allow this distraction to interfere with your life, Benjamin," his father said coldly. "This girl needs to understand her place." "My place?" Haley finally spoke, her voice trembling, but not from fear, from indignation. "My place is not where you decide." Mr. Vasconcelos smiled as if he found her boldness amusing. "Then let's see how far this bravery goes when you don't have a job to support your family." The blow was cruel. Haley felt tears burn in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall there in front of him. It was Benjamin who broke the silence. "If she leaves, I'm leaving too." His father stared at him, his expression hardening. "You wouldn't do that. Try me." Benjamin's defiant look made a muscle in his father's face twitch. The war was declared. 2 hours later, Haley was in her room, putting her few clothes into the suitcase. Her hands trembled, her heart was broken. The door opened and Benjamin entered, his eyes filled with pain and anger. "You don't have to go," he said, his voice choked. She looked at him, feeling her throat close up. "You know I have, too." He walked up to her, holding her face in both hands. "I love you, Haley. I'm not going to lose you like this." Those words were like an explosion inside her. Haley closed her eyes, feeling the tears finally fall. "I love you too, but I can't stay like this, not this way." He took a deep breath, trying to find a solution. "Then let me go with you." She smiled through her tears, caressing his face. "You have a dream, Benjamin. You can't throw it all away for me." He held her hands tightly. "I'm not throwing anything away. I'm choosing." She kissed him, a kiss full of love, desperation, and silent promises. When they parted, she grabbed her suitcase and walked toward the door. Before leaving, she looked at him one last time. "If we are meant to be, Benjamin, destiny will bring us back to each other." And then she was gone, leaving behind a love that should not have existed, but would never be forgotten. Haley crossed the gates of the mansion with the suitcase in her hands and her heart in pieces. The fine rain that began to fall seemed to reflect her pain, each drop blending with the tears she refused to let overflow. Her feet stepped on the wet pavement, but her mind was still in the room she had just left. The last look from Benjamin, the pain etched in his eyes, the grip of his hands in the last moments before parting. She wanted to go back. Every cell in her body begged her to give it up and run into his arms, but she couldn't. If we're meant to be, destiny will bring us back to each other. She repeated those words in her mind like a mantra, trying to convince herself that the love they felt was strong enough to withstand time, distance, and the cruel interference of Benjamin's father. But destiny, unpredictable and merciless, was already charting a path that neither of them could imagine. The days dragged on like an eternity. Haley got a new job at a small restaurant where she spent endless hours on her feet, washing dishes and serving customers. Her body grew tired, but her mind occupied itself with only one thought: Benjamin. She wondered if he was okay, if he missed her, if he would still fight for them, or if he would give in to his father's pressure. On the other side of the city, Benjamin was facing his own hell. His father, determined to separate him from Haley, imposed new challenges and obligations within the company. He wanted him to take on greater responsibilities, forcing him to travel for important meetings and to dedicate himself exclusively to the family empire. The more you distract yourself with foolish feelings, the harder it will be for you to become who you really need to be, the patriarch would say, watching him sternly. But Benjamin already knew who he wanted to be, and that man did not exist without Haley. He tried to find her. He called friends, went to places where he thought she might be, but it was as if she had disappeared. It was only weeks later that he finally got a lead. On a rainy afternoon, after leaving a grueling meeting, Benjamin received an unexpected message from Olivia. "If you want to see her, go to the restaurant at the corner of Montero Street, but hurry." Benjamin's heart raced. Without thinking twice, he grabbed the car keys and drove hastily. And when he arrived, he saw Haley through the restaurant's window, serving a table with a tired but genuine smile. His chest tightened. She was there, she was still real, and in that instant he knew that no matter what happened, he would never give up on her. Haley barely had time to react when the restaurant door opened and Benjamin walked in, drenched. From the rain, their eyes met instantly. Time stopped. The voices around them disappeared. She dropped the tray she was holding, not noticing when the cutlery fell to the floor. Benjamin crossed the room without hesitation, and before she could say anything, he held her face between his hands and kissed her. It was a desperate, intense kiss, filled with longing and promises. The people around looked on, some in shock, others smiling discreetly. When the kiss ended, Haley looked at him, breathless. "What are you doing here?" He smiled, his eyes shining. "I came to get what is mine." She swallowed hard, feeling her heart race. "Benjamin, this isn't that. Simple, I know, but when have we ever been simple?" She chuckled lightly, feeling the love pulse stronger than the fear. "Your father will destroy me if he finds out." "My father no longer has power over me, Haley. I've made a decision." She frowned. "What decision?" Benjamin took a deep breath and held her hands firmly. "I'm leaving the company." She widened her eyes. "What?" "I don't want to live under his rules anymore. I don't want to be the perfect heir. I want to build something my way." She felt her throat tighten. "But, Benjamin, this is your life." He smiled softly. "You are my life, and I want you to come with me." Haley's heart nearly stopped. "Where to?" He pulled her closer, whispering against her lips, "To anywhere we can be happy." Tears came before she could hold them back. And then, for the first time, Haley allowed herself to dream. Destiny had separated them once, but now she knew she would never let that happen again. The bags were ready. The modest apartment where Haley spent the last few weeks now felt too small to contain everything she felt. She looked at Benjamin, who was helping her close the last bag. Her heart was still racing. "Are you sure about this?" she asked, trying to contain the avalanche of emotions inside her. He smiled lightly, holding her hands. "I have never been so sure of anything in my life." They both knew they were leaving behind not just an address, but a story filled with struggles, pain, and impositions. Now they were about to start something new, together. The city they chose did not carry the shadows of the past. It was a peaceful place where no one knew them and where they could rebuild their lives without the judging eyes. Haley got a job at a small bookstore, a cozy space where she spent her days surrounded by stories and dreams. Benjamin, on the other hand, started working on his own renewable energy project, far from his father's empire. He wanted to prove that he could build something on his own, without relying on the family name. Days passed, turning into weeks. They created a routine. They had coffee together every morning, walked hand in hand through the quiet streets at dusk, and at night they snuggled on the sofa, sharing confidences and dreams. It was a simple but intense happiness, and for a while They seemed untouchable, but the past always finds a way to return. Haley got home earlier that day. The smell of coffee was still in the air when she threw herself on the sofa, feeling the fatigue of the routine. That's when she heard the noise of a car parking on the street. She frowned. Through the window, she saw a black luxury vehicle, the kind that completely clashed with the simple neighborhood where they lived. And then the car door opened. Her heart stopped. It was him, Benjamin's father. Haley felt the blood turn cold. For a second, she didn't know what to do. But when she heard steady knocks on the door, her instinct screamed for her not to open. But it was too late. The door opened, and there he was. The cold gaze, the imposing posture, as if he knew he still had power over everything around him. "I knew I would find you," he said with a half-poisoned smile. Haley tried to maintain a firm stance. "What are you doing here?" He entered uninvited, surveying the small apartment with disdain. "Is this where you are living?" He let out a low laugh. Benjamin traded an empire for this. Haley clenched her hands into fists. He traded a prison for freedom. Mr. Vasconcelos stared at her for a long moment. "Do you think love pays the bills, girl? Do you really think this quiet life will last forever?" Before she could respond, the door opened again. Benjamin entered, carrying grocery bags. Upon seeing his father there, he stopped instantly. Both of their eyes met. The silence was overwhelming, and then Benjamin dropped the bags on the floor, not breaking eye contact. "What are you doing here?" His father settled into the chair he was sitting on. "Don't worry, son. I just came to give you a chance to come back home before it's too late." Haley saw Benjamin's jaw clench. "I have no home there." His father crossed his arms. "So, you really think you can build a life without the Vasconcelos name? That you can face this world alone?" Benjamin took a deep breath, fighting against anger. "I'm not alone." The patriarch's eyes shifted to Haley, laden with contempt. "Ah, yes. Your inspiring muse." He stood slowly, walking over to Benjamin. "Look, son, I always knew you. Had your rebellious side. But this is not rebellion, this is foolishness." Benjamin stepped forward, his eyes blazing. "And say whatever you want about me, but don't talk about her." His father laughed, shaking his head. "You're betting your life on an illusion, Benjamin. In the end, she'll realize she can't give you anything but problems." Haley felt the words hit her soul like daggers, but before she could react, Benjamin held her hand firmly. "I'd rather live in this illusion than spend another day under your control." His father narrowed his eyes. "So that's it? You're going to give up everything for a girl who has nothing to offer you?" Haley took a deep breath, trying to stay and calm, but Benjamin was quicker. He looked directly at his father and smiled wryly. "Quite the opposite, Dad. Haley has offered me everything you were never capable of." Mr. Vasconcelos fell silent. Something changed in his expression. For a second, Haley saw something that looked like regret. But the mask quickly returned. He stepped back, adjusting his suit. "Very well, do as you wish. But remember this, Benjamin. One day, you will need me." And without saying anything more, he walked out the door, leaving a suffocating tension in the air. When the sound of the car disappeared into the distance, Haley finally breathed. "My God," she whispered, bringing her hands to her face. Benjamin pulled her close, holding her face in his hands. "Hey, don't let him affect you." She looked into his eyes. "Aren't you afraid?" He smiled lightly. "I am, but not of my father." "Then of what?" He pulled her even closer, resting his forehead against hers. "Of losing you." Haley's heart raced, and in that moment, she knew that nothing else mattered. They would face the world together, and no matter how difficult the path was, they were ready to fight for this love. Because in the end, some stories don't need the world's approval to be eternal. They simply are. Time passed, and against all odds, Haley and Benjamin were managing to build the life they had always dreamed of. The small apartment, which once felt like an escape, was now a home. Mornings were filled with the aroma of fresh coffee and the smiles exchanged between passionate glances. At night, they shared dreams, planned for the future, and made silent promises amid lingering kisses. Haley continued working at the bookstore, and Benjamin was starting to see his renewable energy project come to fruition. With great effort, he managed to gather interested investors for the idea, proving that he did not need the Vasconcelos name to be successful. They were happy. For the first time, fear seemed to have dissipated, but calmness never lasts forever. And they were about to discover that the past had never truly left them in peace. One night, Haley was closing the bookstore when she felt a chill run down her spine. Someone was watching. She looked around, but the street was empty. She took a deep breath, trying to shake off her paranoia. But when she left work and walked through the quiet streets on her way home, she noticed a black car parked across the sidewalk. Her heart raced. It was the same car that Benjamin's father drove when he showed up at her house weeks before. She swallowed hard and quickened her pace. At every corner, she looked back, but saw no one. When she finally got home, her body was tense. Benjamin noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" She hesitated for a moment, but then shook her head. "Nothing. I'm just tired." He pulled her into an embrace, kissing her forehead gently. "Let's rest, my love." She closed her eyes, trying to believe that everything was okay, but deep down she felt that something bad was about to happen. And she was right. The next morning, Benjamin left for an important meeting with one of the most promising investors in his project. It would be a turning point. If he closed that deal, his future would be secured. But what he didn't know was that someone was already manipulating the pieces on the board. Hours later, Benjamin came home in silence. His gaze was lost, his expression gloomy. Haley immediately knew something was wrong. "What happened?" she asked, approaching him. He rubbed his hands over his face before finally looking at her. The investor backed out. She widened her eyes. "What do you mean?" He let out a bitter laugh. He received an offer to invest in a similar project, just on a much larger scale. Haley furrowed her brow. Who would do that? He didn't answer, because he already knew the answer. The name Vasconcelos still held power, and his father had just pulled the rug out from under him. The following days were suffocating. Benjamin tried to fight, sought other investors, pitched his project to new companies, but all the doors seemed to close. "He's cornering me," he told Haley, frustrated. "My father is making sure I have no chance to grow without him." She held his hand, looking into his eyes. "We can't give up." He laughed without humor. "Don't you understand yet, Haley? He won't stop. Then we won't either." Benjamin watched her for a long moment. "Do you really believe we can win this?" She cupped his face gently. "I believe in you." His expression softened, and in that moment, he knew that no matter what happened, he would fight until the end. The next night, Benjamin received an unexpected call. "We need to talk," said the voice on the other end. It was his father. Against his will, Benjamin agreed to meet him. When he arrived at the designated restaurant, Patriarch Vasconcelos was already waiting, sitting at a reserved table, a whiskey glass in hand. "You're playing dirty," Benjamin said bluntly. His father smirked. "I'm not playing. I'm just making sure you make the right decision." Benjamin crossed his arms. And what would that decision be? The man took a sip of whiskey before answering. "Come home." The silence between the two was intense. Benjamin let out a dry laugh. "Do you really think that after everything you've done, I'm just going to go back?" His father shrugged. If you don't come back, your life will continue as it is now. No future, no money, no hope. Benjamin felt his blood boil. You can't control my life forever. His father leaned forward, his eyes cold as blades. I don't need to control forever. I just need you to understand one thing. He paused, letting the words settle in the air before continuing. If you continue with Haley, you'll never have anything. The threat was clear. Benjamin felt his heart race. What do you mean by that? His father only smiled. I've done a lot, and I can do more. Anger surged through his chest like fire. You can't destroy her life. Can't I? The man raised an eyebrow. I've done worse things. Benjamin felt his stomach churn. In that moment he realized he was faced with an impossible choice. If he continued fighting, he would put Haley in danger. But if he gave up, he would lose the love of his life, and he didn't know if he could live with that. Benjamin returned home later that night. Haley was waiting for him on the couch, her eyes full of concern. He watched her for a long moment, memorizing every detail of her face in his mind, because he knew this would be the last time he would look at her that way. He approached and held her hands. I love you, Haley. She smiled, touching his face. I love you too. But then he looked away. But this can't continue. She blinked, confused. What? He let out a heavy sigh, feeling his heart break into 1,000 pieces. I need to leave. Her smile vanished. What are you saying? His eyes were filled with pain. I can't be with you anymore. Her world crumbled in that instant. No, she whispered, shaking her head. You're lying. But he wasn't, because for the first time Benjamin truly believed that the only way to protect her was to destroy everything they had built together. Haley felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. The words of Benjamin still echoed in her mind, each syllable piercing like sharp blades. I can't be with you anymore. She blinked, stunned, feeling her heart race. What are you saying? Her voice came out weak, as if she feared the answer. Benjamin looked away. He didn't want her to see the truth reflected in his eyes. He didn't want her to realize that every word spoken went against everything he truly felt, but he needed to do this for her sake. We've come too far, Haley. I tried, but I can't pretend that this has a future anymore. Her chest tightened. You're lying, she said, trying to find something in his eyes that would contradict those words. But he remained firm. I'm not. Haley laughed humorlessly, crossing her arms. So, that's it? Was it all a game to you? You said, you loved me, Benjamin, and now you want me to simply believe that it's over. He clenched his fists. If he told the truth, if he explained that his father had cornered him and that this was the only way to protect her, she would never let him go. She would fight, and that was what he feared the most. I thought I loved you. He lied, his voice harsher than he intended. But maybe I was just running away from my own reality. Her face paled. A solitary tear escaped her eyes, but she quickly wiped it away, refusing to show weakness. And what changed? He took a deep breath. I realized I can't give up everything. Haley felt a knot in her throat. Everything? You mean your luxurious life, your company, your position? He hesitated for a second, but then nodded. Yes, she felt as if she had been struck, her heart shattered into pieces so small that she doubted she would ever be able to put them back together. And for the first time, Haley realized that love was not always enough. She straightened her posture, gathering all the dignity she had left. If that's what you want, then go. Benjamin's eyes faltered for a second. He hoped she would beg, that she would insist, but Haley was too strong for that. She wouldn't beg for anyone's love. He opened his mouth to say something, but stopped himself. Instead, he took one last look at her, memorizing every detail. Then, without saying another word, he turned and walked out the door. And with him, he took a piece of Hayley's soul. The following days were a blur. Hayley went to work mechanically, her eyes dull, her smile faded. The bookstore that once felt like a refuge was now just a place where she tried to distract herself from the emptiness she felt. Her brother called to check how she was, but she always responded with a simple, "I'm okay." Because how could she explain that she felt as if she had been torn from her own life? At night she lay in bed and closed her eyes, hoping sleep would take her far away from that pain. But whenever she closed her eyes, she saw Benjamin. And then she cried. She cried because he abandoned her. She cried because despite everything, she still loved him. And she cried because she didn't know if she would ever be able to stop loving him. Fate, however, had other plans. 3 months later, Hayley was organizing the books on the shelf when she heard someone enter the bookstore. "Hayley!" She froze. The voice was familiar. Turning slowly, she found Olivia standing at the entrance with a tense look. Hayley blinked, surprised. "What are you doing here?" The housekeeper hesitated for a moment before approaching. "I needed to tell you something you have the right to know." Hayley frowned. "What is it?" Olivia took a deep breath. "Benjamin never wanted to leave you." Her heart raced. "What?" "His father threatened him. He said that if he continued with you, he would ruin his life. He would take away his home, his job, and even harm his family." Hayley felt the world spin. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "He had no choice, Hayley. But since the day he left, he has never been the same." Tears streamed down her face. The pain she felt at that moment was unlike anything, not because Benjamin left her, but because he left her for love. Hayley wasted no time. That same night she took the first bus back to the city where Benjamin was. Her heart raced irregularly, her mind a whirlwind. And when she finally arrived at the Vasconcelos family building, she felt the weight of fate on her shoulders. She ran up the stairs, stopped in front of the big door, and knocked hard. Seconds later, the door opened, and there he was. His tired eyes, his thinner face, but still the same Benjamin she loved. For a moment, neither of them said anything. Then, without hesitation, Hayley stepped forward and kissed him. It was a desperate kiss, full of anger, pain, and longing. When they separated, she looked at him with tears sparkling in her eyes. "You won't run away from me anymore." He chuckled softly, holding her face with both hands. "Never again." And there, in that moment, Hayley and Benjamin understood that no matter how many times the world tried to separate them, because their love would always bring them back to each other. The taste of Benjamin was still on Hayley's lips when they pulled away, breathing heavily. He stared at her as if he couldn't believe she was there, as if, at any moment, she could disappear. How did you know?" he murmured, his voice hoarse. Hayley held his face in her hands, her eyes misty. "Olivia told me the truth. You didn't leave me because you wanted to, Benjamin. You left me to protect me." He closed his eyes, exhaling a heavy sigh. "I wanted so much to tell you, but I couldn't." "And you thought I would accept that?" she asked, her voice choked. "That I would be okay without you?" He let out a humorless laugh. "It wasn't easy for me either." She shook her head. "You have no idea how much I suffered, how much I hated you, and how much I kept loving you." Benjamin ran his hands through his hair, frustrated with himself. "I just wanted to protect you, Hayley." She held his hands tightly. "But you don't understand. What hurt me the most was that you decided for both of us. You took away my choice to fight by your side." He blinked, absorbing those words, because she was right. He wanted to protect her so much that he never asked if she wanted to be protected. He wanted to take her away from the war against his father, but he never stopped to think that she didn't need him to fight alone. And now, looking at her, he knew he wouldn't make the same mistake again. He wouldn't leave her behind anymore. "Do you really want to do this?" he asked, his voice heavy with emotion. She smiled, her eyes shining. "I want to face everything, with you." And with that, fate finally sealed their decision. They would fight together. The next morning, Benjamin and Haley found the courage to do what they should have done a long time ago. They went to the Vasconcelos mansion. The place was still as grand as before, but now it felt smaller in the certainty of what they felt. As they entered, they were met with curious looks from the servants. Some looked surprised, others discreetly pleased to see Benjamin back, and not alone. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. Benjamin's father was waiting for them in the office. He was seated in his leather armchair, a glass of whiskey in his hand, as if he already knew this moment would come. When he saw them, "Enter," he raised an eyebrow. "So, you're back," he said with a half smile. "I thought it would take you longer." Benjamin stood firm before him, while Haley at his side held her head high. "I'm not here to come back," Benjamin said firmly. "I'm here to tell you that you no longer have any power over my life." The man let out a low laugh. "Is that so?" "Yes. You can keep trying to bring me down, trying to control my future, but that ends here." Benjamin's father crossed his arms, staring at him. "And what makes you think you can just get rid of me?" Benjamin took a step forward. "Because I am no longer that boy you manipulated. I am a man, and I'm ready to fight for what is mine." Haley felt a shiver run down her spine. She had never seen Benjamin so strong, so self-assured. His father, for his part, remained silent for a long moment. Then he smiled. "Very well, son. You finally learned to play the game," Benjamin frowned. "This is not a game." His father tilted his head. "It always was for me." The silence that followed was thick. And then, as if he had lost interest, the patriarch stood up. "Do whatever you want. Go on with your lives. But remember, when love is not enough to pay the bills, don't say I didn't warn you." Haley felt anger grow inside her, but Benjamin just smiled faintly. "We don't need your money." His father laughed, shaking his head. "We shall see." And with that, he turned his back on them, leaving them there. But for the first time, Benjamin did not feel intimidated, because now he was not alone. And that made all the difference. Months passed, and little by little, Benjamin and Haley began to build the life they had always dreamed of. With the help of new contacts and independent investors, Benjamin finally managed to revive his renewable energy project. And this time, it was completely his. Haley, for her part, decided to open her own bookstore. With effort and dedication, she transformed a small space into a refuge for readers, a place where stories came to life and where her own story found a new beginning. They learned that true love does not just mean happy moments. It means fighting, falling and getting up, choosing each other every day despite the challenges. And that night, while they sat on the porch of the house they now called home, Benjamin held Haley's hand and looked into her eyes. "Are you sure you have no regrets about anything?" She smiled, squeezing his fingers between hers. "I have never been so sure of anything in my life." He took a deep breath, holding something in his pocket. "Because I want this to last forever." Haley frowned. And then Benjamin pulled out a small black box and opened it in front of her. Inside, a ring sparkled under the moonlight, her eyes filled with tears. "Benjamin." He smiled. "Will you marry me, Haley?" Her heart raced, and for the first time all the pains of the past disappeared. Because there, in that moment, there was only one possible answer. Yes, and with that simple yes, they sealed the beginning of a future where they could finally be happy, together, forever. Haley's yes echoed like music in Benjamin's ears. For a moment, everything around them disappeared. Only the two of them existed under the starry sky on the porch of the house they had built together. Tears streamed down her face, but they were tears of joy, of relief, of love. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice choked with emotion. She laughed through her tears, shaking her head. "Benjamin, I've never been so sure of anything in my life." He slid the ring onto her finger, his hands trembling. Haley looked at the shining jewel for a moment and then at him. And it was there in that exchange of glances that they both knew, no matter what lay ahead, they would face it together. Because now there was no more fear, only love. The following days were filled with preparations for the wedding, but contrary to what Haley imagined, it wasn't just the flowers, the dress, and the music that filled her days. There were also unexpected reunions. One of them came when her mother and brother arrived in town after months of not seeing them. "My daughter, is this a dream?" her mother asked, holding her hands tightly. Haley laughed, feeling her heart warm. "No, Mom, this is real." Her younger brother, now a young man about to enter college, looked at Benjamin with a mischievous smile. "I've always known you wouldn't give up on her." Benjamin smiled, ruffling the boy's hair. "You were smarter than me." But the most unexpected reunion came from someone Haley never thought she would see again. Olivia. The housekeeper appeared at the bookstore at the end of an afternoon, her eyes shining with pride. "I heard the news," she said with a discreet smile. Haley threw herself into her arms, emotional. "If it weren't for you, I would have never discovered the truth." Olivia smiled lightly. "I just did what I had to do. I always knew you and Benjamin were strong together." Haley held the housekeeper's hands, feeling gratitude overflowing in her chest. "You're coming to the wedding, right?" "If I'm invited, how can I refuse?" The two laughed, and at that moment Haley knew that despite everything, there were still unbreakable ties in the past, and that some people were truly destined to remain in her life forever. But as always, fate still had one last test reserved. On the eve of the wedding, Benjamin received an unexpected call. It was his father. For a moment he thought about ignoring it, but deep down he knew he needed to hear what he had to say. He answered, "So, are you finally going to do it?" The cold voice of the patriarch echoed from the other end of the line. "Yes, I'm going to marry the woman I love." The silence that followed was long. Then his father let out a tired sigh. "If that is your choice, I can no longer interfere." Benjamin furrowed his brow. "What do you mean by that?" "I mean, I realized I can't mold you to my liking. You made your choice, and although I disagree, this is your life." Benjamin was silent for a moment. He expected one more threat, one more attempt at control. But for the first time, his father seemed resigned. "I don't need your approval," Benjamin said, his voice firm. "I know." Another silence. Then before hanging up, Benjamin's father murmured something that took him by surprise. "I hope you are happy, son." The line went silent shortly after, and for the first time Benjamin felt that somehow he and his father had finally closed. That war, not with a victory or a defeat, but with a silent understanding that they would never be the same. And that was okay. The day dawned with the golden glow of the sun lighting up the perfect blue sky. Haley looked at herself in the mirror, feeling her heart race. Her dress was simple yet elegant. The white fabric gently embraced her body, and the veil fell softly over her shoulders. By her side, her mother adjusted a loose curl of her hair, her eyes misty. "You look beautiful, my daughter." Haley smiled, holding her hand. "Thank you for always believing in me, Mom." At the altar, Benjamin was waiting. He wore a flawless suit, but his gaze was fixed on the woman walking toward him. With every step she took, he felt his chest fill with a love so strong it almost hurt. And when she finally stood before him, he knew that moment was everything he had fought for. The officiant began the ceremony, but for Benjamin and Haley, nothing else existed except for them. "Benjamin, do you take Haley as your wife, to love her and honor her all the days of your life?" He looked into her eyes, and his answer came without hesitation. "Yes." The officiant turned to Haley. "Haley, do you take Benjamin as your husband, to love him and honor him all the days of your life?" She smiled, tears shining in her eyes. "Yes." When the kiss sealed their union, applause echoed through the church. But for them it felt as if they were alone, just two hearts that, after so many struggles, had finally found their home in each other. And that's how Haley and Benjamin proved that in the end, true love always wins. Because when two hearts are meant to be together, nothing can separate them. Not fear, not time, not the whole world. And that was just the beginning of a life they would build side by side, forever. Doom. Haley and Benjamin's wedding was like a dream come true. The reception was filled with joy, laughter, and love. Friends and family celebrated, toasting to the couple's future and dancing under the twinkling lights of the garden where the celebration took place. Haley looked around and saw everything she once feared losing. She and Benjamin had faced the world together, and now, finally, they could breathe without fear. He pulled her to a quieter corner, away from the noise and euphoria of the party. "Can you believe we made it this far?" he whispered against her hair, holding her waist tenderly. She smiled, resting her head against his chest. "Sometimes, I still think I'm dreaming." He gently held her chin, making her look at him. "If this is a dream, I never want to wake up." Haley smiled and kissed him softly. For a moment, it seemed like nothing could take them away from that perfect moment. But life always has one last card to play. And that night still held a revelation that could change everything. The party was winding down when a black car discreetly parked near the entrance. No one noticed immediately, until Haley, looking at the movement in the distance, felt a chill run down her spine. Her heart raced when she saw who was getting out of the vehicle, Mr. Vasconcelos, the same man who had tried to tear them apart so many times. Benjamin's father slowly walked toward the reception, his eyes scanning the room before finally finding his son and daughter-in-law. The guests fell silent, sensing the tension in the air. Haley squeezed Benjamin's hand, feeling her body stiffen. "What is he doing here?" she whispered. Benjamin frowned, his eyes narrowing. "I have no idea." When Patriarch Vasconcelos stopped in front of them, the silence was absolute. He looked at Haley, then at Benjamin, and let out a heavy sigh. "I didn't come to cause trouble." Benjamin crossed his arms. "Then why are you here?" The man took a deep breath, hesitating before speaking. "Because I think I have caused enough problems." Benjamin's eyes glinted with skepticism. "What do you want, Father?" Patriarch Vasconcelos looked directly at Haley. "I want to tell the truth." She frowned. "What truth?" The man swallowed hard before saying the words that would freeze time around them. "The truth about your family, about who you really are." Haley's heart raced. "What do you mean by that?" He hesitated for a second before finally dropping the bomb. "Your father worked for me." A deadly silence engulfed the place. Haley felt her blood run cold. "What?" Mr. Vasconcelos looked at Benjamin, then back at her. "Your father was my right hand, but when he found out something he shouldn't have, I had to remove him." The words pierced Haley's ears like sharp knives. "Remove him." Her voice trembled. "My father died in an accident." The man averted his gaze, and then Haley knew. It wasn't an accident. The truth hit her like a punch to the stomach. She felt her legs weaken, and Benjamin quickly caught her. "Are you saying that?" Benjamin started, but his voice faltered. Mr. Vasconcelos closed his eyes for a moment before continuing. "I never wanted him dead, but he knew too much and paid the price." The words were like a gunshot. Haley looked at Benjamin, her eyes filled with tears. "He killed my father." Those words felt surreal as they left her mouth. The man remained silent, his face grim, as if carrying a weight for years. Benjamin clenched his fists. "Why are you telling us this now?" The patriarch let out a weary sigh. "Because I'm dying." The shock was immediate. Haley felt trapped, in a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. "And that's supposed to make us forgive you?" Benjamin asked, his voice laced with fury. Benjamin's father did not respond immediately. He simply looked at his son and daughter-in-law, seeing the reflection of all his failures. "I know I can't erase what I did. I know I don't deserve forgiveness." Haley felt her chest rise and fall with gasping breaths. The man looked her in the eyes. "But I thought you had the right to know." And then, without saying anything more, he turned and walked away, leaving behind a heavy silence and a truth that would change their lives forever. That night, Haley and Benjamin sat on the porch, side by side, saying nothing for a long time. The wind gently swayed her hair, and he held her hand firmly. "How are you?" Benjamin finally asked. She took a deep breath, trying to organize her thoughts. "I don't know. I'm still trying to understand everything." He squeezed her hand tighter. "No matter what we discovered today, you are still the same Haley." She looked at him, her eyes full of emotion. "And you are still the man I love." They gazed at each other for a long moment. "Can you forgive him?" Benjamin asked in a whisper. Haley closed her eyes. "I don't know, but I know I don't want hatred to consume me." He ran his fingers through her hair as if trying to calm her. "Then we will move forward together, one step at a time." She smiled faintly, resting her head on his chest, and it was there, in that silent exchange of promises, that they decided the past would not define them. That despite everything, their love was still stronger, and that no matter what came, they would remain side by side, because true love is not perfect. It is made of battles, of overcoming, and above all, of choices. And Haley and Benjamin chose to love, despite the past, despite the pain, and that was the greatest victory of all. If this story touched your heart, don't let it end here. We want to know your opinion. What would you do in Haley and Benjamin's place? Do you believe that true love can overcome any obstacle? Leave your comment below.